Hello to my water signs Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. Welcome to the Sagittarius new moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Cancer rising, welcome to your horoscope for the Sagittarius new moon happening on December the 13th at 10:32 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. Now this is going to be a really important night for you Cancer rising. Hopefully you can get some darkness. So because the new moon's occurring exactly at 10:30 in the morning, it might be nice on the Tuesday the night before, or if you get up really early on the Wednesday morning, to have your little moment with the possibilities of this new moon. It'd be really lovely to light some candles, I think. When I think of Sagittarius, the sign, I always think of candlelight. The three fire signs have their different modalities. So the first, the cardinal fire sign is Aries, and that's like a match. The second is Leo, the fixed fire sign, and that's like a bonfire. And the third is Sagittarius, the mutable fire sign, and that's like a beautiful, quiet, powerful altar of candles. There's so much to be heard when you listen to candlelight. It's so calming, and there's all sorts of different reasons that folks light candles, right? We sometimes light them to celebrate, we light them to romance and to make love, we light them to guide people home, and sometimes we light them to send people off to. There's so many different ways that human beings interact by the light of a candle. So we're looking at your sixth house, Cancer rising. In the sixth house, we learn about repetition and endurance. Work, work, work are the words for the sixth house. Sometimes it can feel like slavery. Sometimes it can feel like skill. You've got to repeat something over and over again to learn it, to get it done. There's a certain way that the mind and the body sort of falls into in such repetition to get over the mark, to achieve something impossible. Now I'm looking at the sun and the moon in Sagittarius, where they're forming this new spark, this new lunar cycle, this opportunity or invitation for you to consider your endurance in life, moving forward with a fresh start. Think about this new moon as it being the beginning of a lunar cycle in Sagittarius for you. So the tarot card for 20 degrees of Sagittarius is the 10 of Wands. A lot of endurance in this card. There's a lot of self-sacrifice in this card too. If the Wands are fire, magic, this person has been making magic and making magic and making something out of nothing for the longest time. And they've been looking on the bright side. They've been keeping their chin up. They've been moving forward. But the Wands are stacking up. And it does look like an image of self-sacrifice. It does look like, what's the culmination of all of these magical lessons, or what's the point in collecting all of these Wands? Is it to build a pyre and to sacrifice oneself on there? I don't think so. Not for you, Cancer rising. Not for you. Take this image of endurance and feel it. You can also probably feel the influence of Mars in Sagittarius at this new moon as well. Mars is at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. And they're actually shooting up a very supportive net or line, thread, up into Aries in your 10th house of your most public self, your legacy, what you wish to leave behind, your visible nature. The line that it's throwing in support is to the asteroid Chiron up there in Aries. So Chiron has been in Aries since 2019 full-time, and it won't leave until 2026. This isn't to say that we'll always feel the presence of the asteroid in that part of our chart, because the asteroids work in different ways. They have different influence. However, there is this feeling of talking about it when the relationships are triggered. And I think at this time of the calendar, to have a little chat about Chiron might be really beneficial. Chiron was a centaur. Chiron was a child of the gods, the one that was gifted eternal life and put that time to good use. They learned all manner of different healing modalities. They learned from the earth. They learned herbalism. They learned to be a sage with their philosophical understanding, their knowledge. They had folks come to them in grief and sorrow and listen to them, listen to how they were feeling. They put their time here on planet Earth to the best possible use. They learned everything that they could. And then they were shot with a poison arrow in an archery lesson, and try as they might, they could not heal their own wound. And they spent the rest of the time on planet Earth longing for release, longing for someone to heal it. They couldn't find it. And so the mythology of Chiron goes, they eventually pleaded to the gods so much to set their soul free that they agreed, and they set Chiron's soul into the ether, and then they installed the constellation Sagittarius in our cosmos as a reminder or in memorial of Chiron and all of their lifelong lessons, their devotion to learning more. Now, not every astrologer finds that line between the two. Some say that it's a misread. I like to work with my knowledge as a sort of evolving process. And so far, the way that I learn about Sagittarius and learn to remember to love Sagittarius and to think of that sign with a golden glow has a lot to do with my understanding of Chiron, the asteroid, and the mythology. I think a lot of folks that have Sagittarius placements or energies in their chart do have something in common with Chiron. There's that willingness to learn and to seek out the meaning or the reason why. And so in astrology, wherever Chiron is, might bring up some unconscious wounding around that area. So what I'm looking at your chart, Cancer rising, I'm seeing this support with Mars, the brave one, the one with the shield, that is actually speaking to Chiron in your 10th house, your most public self. So if you can cast your mind to 2019 specifically, but then over the coming years, right to this point, and your relationship with your confidence around your public self, perhaps the ways in which your public self, that recognition area, has had its highs and its lows. Perhaps there were moments over that time frame that I'm describing that can be like, oh, that's when I started to lose faith, or that's when there was something that I was trying to work towards that I didn't have enough puff to get there. And right now, at this new moon in Sagittarius, which talks to a different area of work, it does feel more like service, maybe servitude, the grind. But there's stuff that you're learning in there that is aiding and actually potentially healing some of your vulnerability, or some of your the lack of faith that you might sometimes have in regard to your public worth, your legacy. The stuff that we do day to day, the rhythms that we stick to, the repetition and the endurance that we build up is something to be really proud of. And hopefully at this new moon in Sagittarius, you can see that. And why they might feel disparate, those two houses actually have a lot in common with one another. Because the reality of your life, the way that you spend it, what you've devoted your time to, who you've devoted your time to. Perhaps there's been folks that have needed your assistance, that have needed your strong back to get them through. That's something to be really, really proud of. And I reckon that maybe at this new moon in Sagittarius, you can remember that that's going to be a part of your legacy. I'm not sure what is going on up there. We know that the dragon's head is there right now, that talk about that sort of like urgency or compulsion to sort of chase that dragon into the realm of your public recognition. That's going to be occurring over the next 18 months. There's also going to be a moment where the dragon meets up with Chiron. And so we will talk about Chiron again over the coming bit of time, over the next few months, the next couple of years. There's going to be this presence. And so while Chiron could heal others, and in fact was, as he was in pain and agony himself, he couldn't find the salve to heal his own wounds. But in astrology, Chiron is the direct point for potential healing. And so maybe with this reading, just in your back pocket and with your new moon ritual, I did say candles because it does feel really private and it does feel really sacred. And perhaps there is something private and sacred about the way that you spend a day. Maybe you do enact ritual in your day-to-day life, and that can be something that you can have faith in, will be remembered about you. That those lessons are so valuable, in fact, probably more valuable than any kind of notoriety on a grander scale might be. It's valid to want a career, it's valid to want a legacy, to want to kind of, at the end of your time here, to sit back and think, well, I did my best and I'm known for this. However, it's the things that we often remember about folks that aren't here anymore, that they maybe were oblivious to as well. You can't really fully know for sure how you're perceived by others. And in fact, it's probably none of your business. But the way that you're sticking to task, the way that you can stick to task and find rhythm and find flow in your daily life, the mundane, it's beautiful. And the help that you provide for others, the empathy and the kindness and the care that you give so freely to others, that's got to count for something. That really does. I'm going to get some tarot to flesh this out, but I did want to also make mention that there's another really lovely, quiet aspect of support at this new moon. So the asteroid Vesta is retrograde right now, and they've just made their way back to 1 degree of Cancer, so in your sign, in your first house. And they're forming an exact trine, so another support the other way, to Saturn in Pisces in your 9th house of grander philosophical understanding, of great travel, of expanding the mind, perhaps a place where you've felt a bit restricted at present. You may have wanted to wander off, you may have wanted to chase the dragon, you know, you may have wanted to like drop out, man. But there's a boundary here with Saturn. They're sort of saying, okay, let's find a container for all of this cosmic energy. And right now they're singing another beautiful song down to Vesta in your first house, who was the keeper of the sacred flame, the hearth fire, the center of the house. Across cultures, across the globe, everyone had some version of Vesta, or Hestia, as the Greeks said, the major goddess that kept the sacred flame alive. And so I think that maybe at this new moon, it's really important to have some candles out. You can speak to Hestia if you like, Vesta. There were so many ways in which folks would worship Vesta. Some would tend to the fire to make sure it never went out. There was a diligence surrounding that, keeping that magic alive, you know. Other folks would use their sexuality, the brightness of their body and their drive and their desire, that power in sexual alchemy. I think it was in the pre-Hellenic times, can't be sure. Demetra George knows all about it and writes about it quite thoroughly. But she does tell the story of there was a certain sect of worshippers for Vesta that would make love to men returning home from war, to cleanse their body by the fire of their sexuality, the horrors that they had seen, to soothe them. So that's just something to think about too. This does feel really quiet, and it does feel really personal. And maybe at this time, your legacy, your career is probably the last thing on your mind. There's probably, like a lot of us, a focus on the 6th house, the repetition. Get up, brush those chompers, wash the hair, eat something. There's a lot of horrible things that are occurring right now, and the best thing for you to do for yourself in order to live through it is to make sure that that sixth house is being met with the proper reverence, the daily rituals, the little small sweet kindnesses that you probably don't even remember, just the way you interact with other people. Yeah. The wheel's about to turn. Not immediately, not straight away. There's more to get through, Cancer rising, but we are moving away from this anguish, from this anxiety. We are moving away from this pain. The swords are our thoughts, remember, our mind. 10 is a lot to carry. The sun is always rising on the 10 of swords, though. Never forget that. It's a new day. There's something else for you. There's something on the horizon, and you're doing a great thing by instilling and working with Saturn, that container, those boundaries, to keep you safe, to keep you protected. There are things and relationships and dynamics that you won't engage with any longer, and maybe there's some sort of mirror going on too. You sort of look out to the crisis, multiple crises all over the globe, the unhappy, the sadness, the tragedy of this current moment. When you microcosm or, focus in your gaze to your own life, some of the smaller disturbances kind of seem less important. You're a Cancer rising, so you follow the moon. You're emotional. That's fine. That's actually required of you, Cancer rising, to be emotional, to follow the moon and its cycles. You're really honest with your emotions too. You're getting there. You're learning more about that too. You can tell folks how you feel. You can teach folks that their emotions are like the tides. They roll in and they roll out. All are important to feel. Sadness, anger, sorrow, ecstasy, happiness, love. That's one of your jobs here. And as you move around your sixth house, and as we make this little magical candle wish in your sixth house, remember your power. Remember that you're a moon child. I've been saying that a lot, but it's something that I'd like to remind you. Out of all of us, you know the moon really well. So when it's a new moon, it feels like a reprieve. You know that the moon's up there. You just can't see it, that's all. I love you very much, Cancer rising. Do take care. If you're still here with me, throw me a horse in the comments, please. That would be lovely. If you'd like to subscribe to my horoscope work, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. I can read your birth chart. They look something like this over at umaruby.com. If you'd like to buy a reading for a friend, send me an email at urok@umaruby.com, and we can arrange for a voucher for you to gift them during gift giving season if that's something that you do. I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we're going to speak about the full moon in Cancer, your first house. And on that very same day, Chiron is going to station direct. So there might be further conversations about some of this wounding around your self-worth, around your public-facing self, what you think you're worth as opposed to what the truth of your worth really is. I adore you, Cancer rising. Take good care, and I'll speak to you then. Hello, Scorpio rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the Sagittarius new moon, happening on December the 13th at 10:32 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So it's an early morning moon. I would highly recommend, if you can at all do it, to get up very early before the sun rises. It'd be really nice to have some darkness with this new moon. Maybe even the night before on Tuesday will be fine as well. But what I would love you to do is to, I'm looking at the candle, to light some candles at this new moon in Sagittarius, to create yourself a little altar space, a little room of one's own, and to sit there with the candle and to feel the power of the silence of that flame. Candlelight is used for all sorts of things. We use it to celebrate, we use it to romance, we use it to guide people home, and we use it to set them free too. Candles are stunning. Sagittarius is mutable fire, a fire sign, but a fire sign that gives way to the next weather. And so when I think about Sagittarius, I often do think about candlelight. I think about the journey with fire, from the match to the bonfire to the candle. For you, Sagittarius rules your second house, which is your values, your resources, and your access to financial safety, things like that. How you kind of accrue and take care of your needs. So at a new moon in the second house, it'll be a great time for you to go over your budgets and things like that, to really have a think about money, to have a think about what that means to you, and to have a think about how you can provide yourself with a bit of growth there as well. I am looking at the configurations, and there's a nice story that's sort of been playing itself to all of us at this new moon. And I'll tell you as well. But the sun and the moon are at 20 degrees of Sagittarius. So that's the third decan, the last wedge of the sign. The tarot card for that is the 10 of wands. There is something self-sacrificial about this card, and there is something exhausting about this card too. So if you've been feeling a little strapped for cash lately, or maybe not, but just sort of like exhausted at the level of output that you need to consistently give in order to get the bills paid, or in order to, put food on the table, those kinds of things. I'm talking humbly, but that's kind of it's a commonality, I think, with a lot of folks that I read for, but also, we're all just doing our best to get by at the moment, aren't we? And this can feel exhausting. It can feel sometimes that you don't quite have the strength to get up, brush your teeth, and go to work. It's how you have structured your life and what avenues you've taken in order to give yourself an income stream that do make the difference. So when working with the 10 of wands, really the advice is don't self-sacrifice. Don't climb down off that crucifix. Someone needs the wood. That's quoting Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. If you've not seen it, I highly recommend. But the sun and the moon at this card are speaking to a really lovely, helpful conversation with the dragon's head in Aries in your sixth house of repetition and of health, the body, of work. So it almost feels like it's a good time at this new moon in Sagittarius to take a little stock of the schedule, of your energy, your resources, your physical health, so you don't run yourself into the ground. Scorpio rising, you've been through this amazing metamorphosis, this shedding of the skin, this snake wriggling out that we've been speaking about for a while. That dragon's tail is long gone. Now it's entered into the 12th house, the unknowable. And so there's a focus on the knowable. There's a focus on the reality of your life. Perhaps there's been some habits and things that you are looking forward to breaking. Maybe there's a relationship between your resources and your values that is speaking to some of these habitual behaviors that you've developed over time. No shade. We all have them. I have lots of them. I do know the way that my mind works sometimes when I think about my habits, when it's just looking for some sense of relief and kind of like make this feeling stop. or when it's something that's just completely unconscious, when I'm not even thinking about it, I'm not even enjoying the habit. You know, that's the thing about the word habit. It's not ritual. It's not, enjoyment. It's just a habit. I just do it because that's what I do to break the time or to break the attention or to find some sense of relief. You might not be so habitual, Scorpio rising. You might be, kind of clean living and really aware of everything. But this chat between Sagittarius and Aries, it's supportive. It's kind of amping you up for the next 18 months or so when the dragon's head will be focusing on your ability to repeat, your endurance. That's a great word for the sixth house, is endurance. So what kind of work are you doing, and do you have the strength to endure it? Another chat that's happening is between Mars, the shield, and the sword. And it's speaking to the asteroid Chiron in your sixth house too. So you've probably heard me tell this story a million times, but the centaur Chiron in the mythology was a great healer, was a sage, a herbalist, was an incredible mind, an inventor. They had so many skills in this life. They had eternal life. They were a child of the gods. So they put their time to really good use. And the story of Chiron goes is that they were shot with a poison arrow and were wounded and could not heal their own wounds. They couldn't salve their own pain. So I like the sort of similarity between Sagittarius and Chiron too. They're both centaurs. They both seek and journey for knowledge, which I really love. But Mars, the sword and the shield, the bravery, perhaps you've taken a braver step in the way that you relate to your resources and your money. Perhaps there's something that you're about to sort of go on that you can almost see as going to be a lot of work. That's actually something. It might be a sort of foreboding feeling where you're like, right, I'm about to set foot on this new territory. I'm really convinced and I'm going to go for it, but I can see how much repetition, how much endurance it's going to take. I need to condition myself to be able to take it. And Chiron, the wounded healer, the pain points, is asking you to have a think back over the last several years, particularly around 2019, and think about your health back then and now, and think about perhaps the limits that you were maybe pushing back then and how you've hopefully are learning to know your limits as far as the grind, as far as working. It's really seductive to buy into, hustle culture. And we all hustle. Anyone that's self-employed is, I heard a phrase the other day, which I loved. I've decided to give up the 9 to 5. I'm going to work for myself, which is the 24/7. If you're going to work for yourself and you're going to commit to opening your own business or working in a way that you are your own boss, it does take a lot of nous and a lot of repetition and a lot of discipline and endurance. So as much as this new moon in Sagittarius is really a great inviting space to start creating a little fire magic, light your candles and start really seeing your life moving forward and moving around and growing and developing, it also is a lovely chat about endurance and about being kind to your body. Did you burn out in 2019? Maybe not. I mean, that was the entry point of Chiron. So that's when the story began, I guess, around this part of your chart. So you may not have burned out, but there may have been something that occurred, maybe to do with your health or to do with your work routines that was like, this is damaging in some way. And so let's look at this. That's what Chiron does. There's always such an opportunity to heal wherever Chiron is. So just think about it. And that's not to, hold you down. You're going to work, you're going to work. I'm proud of you. We've all got to earn a buck, right? Don't run yourself ragged and listen to your body and listen to Chiron and the dragon because they're chatting away. There's going to be a moment when Chiron and the dragon's head conjoin. They come together. So that will be a moment. We'll discuss that further. I wonder if that will line up with your future too. That'd be interesting. Just keep that in mind. Hard work is really valid and really, really noble and honourable. Amazing. Self-care and kindness to oneself and listening to the rhythms, learning one's own cycle too. Not everyone can be so diligent and strapped to the grindstone. In fact, people that are sometimes, I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm just a tarot reader. Have a think about it, Scorpio rising. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell your enjoyment of life short because you've got your eyes fixed on the goal. Fix your eyes on the goal. A Sagittarius says, I see the goal, I reach that goal, and then I see another. Beautiful. But they've got endurance to do so. They've got the energy in reserve to do so. And they've got limits to maintain. Let's get you some tarot. Let's have a look to see what the cards have to say to you as well. Judgment, Ten of Pentacles, and the Page of Swords. You'll be loved at the end, in the end. We all get it in the end. You're so lovable, Scorpio rising. And I understand that feeling of sometimes needing to prove your worth. That's really, really prevalent. I'm dyslexic sometimes. Prevalent in your nature and in my nature. That feeling of like proving your worth, working really, really, really hard, because that gives you a sense of context for your own life and purpose. That if you have work to hold up under your chin, that if you have convinced and committed yourself to something ardently and wholeheartedly, that you'll be worthy of love. Well, the tarot is saying to you right now that that's happening for you anyway. The Judgment card is no judgment. The Judgment card does bring us to that point of transition though. And at the end of it all, what was your life? Was it magical? Did you follow the gold? Did you follow the silver? The Judgment card, my tarot teacher, Julia Inglis at Sacred Familiar, always says, the Judgment card says, don't forget the silver life. When talking about the second house and the sixth house, the silver life, maybe not so involved there. However, I will remind you that the best way for you to feather your nest and to create resources is to be a little bit magical, a bit Sagittarius about it. You're worthy of love just as you are. Nothing to hold up under your chin, not a dollar to your name. You're still loved. This card is so tempting. And we do all think about it. I've been thinking about it heaps lately. The Ten of Pentacles is the sort of wealth being passed on, or a moment of reflection, quiet contemplation, a happy family, and beautiful tapestries, beautiful sort of surrounds. The elder in the foreground with the two dogs resting finally after a lifetime of hard work. It's beautiful. And maybe if you come from that sort of ancestral line too, and you admire folks that came before you for how hard they worked. You will work hard. You do work hard. And your worth is not wrapped up in what you have produced. Keep the Page of Swords close by. They were born with that knowledge. They were born with the truth as their guiding light. The Page of Swords is someone that just speaks the truth straight away. They've got no kind of feeling of self-consciousness around being truthful, around standing up for, the sort of justice, standing up for fairness. But think about what you believe to be true about yourself and about your work, about your relationship to work, Scorpio rising. Because this is coming for you. Absolutely. And this is coming for you too. That's inevitable. We all die. Maybe have a listen to some elders in your life, or there's sometimes I sort of read about folks and their ponderances as they know that their time is coming and their life is wrapping up. At the end of it all, a lot of folks say, I worked too much. I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I spent more time doing things that I enjoyed. Very few of them say, and I am a sultan, and this is my kingdom. I don't think that anyone really thinks that at the end, the power that they have or the abundance that they have accrued, because you can't take it with you. Just things to think about. Don't forget the silver life. That's all. You've got that in common with Taurus rising too, FYI. That card came out for both of you. First house, seventh house. Much love to you, Scorpio rising. If you're still here with me, can you put a horse in the comments, please? In honor of Chiron and in honor of Sagittarius. I'd appreciate it. If you'd like to subscribe to my work, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby, and you can subscribe to my horoscopes if you've got enough money to commit to that. You can also throw some money in the tip jar over there too to keep me going. Very much appreciated. Happy holidays. I can read your birth chart over at umaruby.com. If I've not had the opportunity of drawing you one of these for yourself and reading your astrology specifically to you, I'd love to do that for you. So head to umaruby.com and book yourself a place with me. You can also buy a voucher to gift to somebody else. If gift giving season is something that you participate in and you don't want to give gifts that are so consumable, you can head to umaruby.com. Or you can email me at urok@umaruby.com and we can arrange to get you that voucher just in time. Much love to you, Scorpio rising. I'll be with you in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about the full moon in Cancer. That's also the day that Chiron stations direct. So we'll have our eye on your 6th house of endurance, won't we? We'll make sure that you're doing the right thing by yourself and your body and your capacity. So I'll speak to you then. Take care. Hello, Pisces rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the Sagittarius new moon happening on December the 13th at 10:32 a.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. I would highly recommend that you either take the night before or get up early morning on Wednesday before the sun rises and light some candles. Pisces rising. We're speaking about Sagittarius. We're speaking about mutable fire, like your mutable water. Sagittarius is mutable fire. There's something about a crescendo that happens in these signs and a giving way to the next season. There's something about fire being understood in Sagittarius. There's something about the healing properties of fire in Sagittarius. We light candles for all sorts of different reasons, don't we? We light them to celebrate. We light them to romance. We light them to guide people home. And we light them to set them free. So we're working with a lot of really gentle, calming vibes at this new moon. Your new moon ritual will involve a dark night. So that's why it's important to have it happen in darkness. And we're going to be focusing in on your 10th house of your legacy, your most public-facing self, what you might consider your career, if you've got one, if that's the way that you think about life, but also kind of what you wish to be known for, I would probably say. That sentiment is interchangeable with a couple of different houses. But when I think of the 10th, I do think of like, well, at the end of it, will I be remembered? Won't I be remembered? What am I leaving behind? Is a nice way to think about the 10th house. What have I put my time here on planet Earth doing? How have I spent my days? It's nice to have a new moon because we get to make wishes. We get to write down perhaps the list of hopes and aspirations. We also get to feel the sort of like cleansing feeling that a new moon, a new cycle brings with it. So whatever has occurred before in that part of your life, whatever pain points or difficulty in regard to your confidence in public-facing life, then we can sort of acknowledge that and set it down and then look forward to what's going to happen in the next cycle of the moon. Sagittarius is incredibly spiritual. Sagittarius really wants to learn as much as they can too. Sagittarius is a sign that seeks knowledge, seeks information, seeks the great lessons in life. It's nice for a Pisces rising to have that support in their 10th house, and you can relax a little bit if you've had those feelings of like, well, what is life for? How am I going to spend my days that will be useful, number one, and also kind of like valuable in some sense as well. Sometimes a Pisces rising can get a bit sort of frustrated around career and around public-facing self because one side of it is really driven and really visible and really wanting to move with that kind of magic. And the other side is, well, like, why are we all slaving away and working and working and working and working? We can look to the example of our ancestors perhaps, and probably really feel our privilege too, that that's even an option for us to think about. And a lot of people, not everyone gets to think about life in that way. A Pisces rising often will kind of sit back and be like, well, what is it all for? How can I put my time to best value? And so we get to celebrate all of those parts of you at this new moon, Pisces rising. We get to sit with your potential career or your current career. Maybe you're in the thick of it right now. Maybe you've been kicking some goals lately. There's chats that we're going to have about that part of your life and also your values and your sense of self-worth. When it comes to resources is a major example, and probably one that quite a lot of us can feel a bit terrorized by. If there's a lack of funds, if money and resources haven't been free-flowing, for those of us that have had a difficult past with lack, it can be really triggering to feel that sense of dread of like, oh, I've actually wasted my time because there's not enough food on the table, are the bills paid, those sorts of things. Tender spots that we're speaking about Pisces rising, but the reason I'm doing that is because I'll explain in a minute. First of all, the sun and the moon are at 20 degrees of Sagittarius in your legacy, your public-facing arena. The tarot card that speaks to that point is the 10 of Wands. And when I look at this card, I see self-sacrifice. I see a lot of magic, a lot of wands, a lot of spells, but I also see this exhausting feeling, this sort of like culmination point of like, well, what's the next big trick, you know? Self-sacrifice is very noble. It's also not very helpful when we're talking about a nice, kind relationship with ourselves. You don't have to sort of turn these wands into a pyre and strike a match and set it all ablaze. You're not being asked to do that, Pisces rising. You can feel the emotions of other folks very sincerely. They roll through you. They affect your behavior sometimes. That's part of your soul mission, is to learn that about yourself and to work with it rather than have it overcome you and have it sort of absorb you completely. So the Ten of Wands is tricky, but it's also a nice spotlight on that kind of idea, because you're not a martyr. You're not going to throw yourself to the wolves, because that's not going to help anyone. The more that we're connected to each other around the world, the smaller that we can feel. And that smallness can sometimes be really liberating. It can sometimes be really overwhelming, because meaning in life is more difficult to ascertain, because you're searching for meaning in your own life while witnessing folks searching for survival. And that can be so difficult to quantify or to reconcile those two truths or those two realities happening at the same time. I believe that you're alive, living through this period of history for some sort of purpose, Pisces rising. I believe that we all are. And I believe that it's up to us to work together and to pray. That's what we do with candlelight. That's why there's always an altar of candles in any holy space, because that silence of the candle really allows us to feel it and to penetrate that veil. We get to feel connected to something that might harm us if we're not careful and not respectful of it. But when harnessed, as Sagittarius does, then it's really, really powerful. When I was little, I thought that war was over. When I was very small, I thought that war was part of the olden days, a part of history. When I learned about it first, took me a while to sort of quantify what that even meant. Then as I got older, I really came to realize that we've got to start praying for peace. That in fact, folks have prayed for peace forever, and that I intend to pray for peace until I die. We want that sort of break in the wave. We want some relief from this agonizing tension that's around us, maybe in our own lives, definitely on the global stage. We want it to stop so sincerely. Sagittarius can teach us how we can mediate that intense fear. It's by praying. So the sun and the moon at 20 degrees of Sagittarius is forming a very supportive thread, a trine, a conversation with the dragon's head in your second house in Aries. That story that we're just beginning about your sense of self-worth, your values, your coin, what you're going to do with those resources, what you value in this life. So that's already a really lovely, gentle story. The other line of support, the other thread that's being sewn between Sagittarius and Aries is with Mars, the shield, the brave one, giving support and guidance to the asteroid Chiron in Aries. Now, you've probably heard me talk about Chiron quite a lot. It's one of the cosmic bodies that I do a lot of work with. It's very important to me to develop a relationship with Chiron. Chiron was a centaur in the mythology. They were gifted eternal life because of their lineage. They came from the bloodlines of the gods, and so they lived forever. And they put that time to really good use. They learned as much as they could about the natural world, about the healing properties of philosophy. They learned many skills, so they were able to teach and share these skills around. They had many students. They were wounded, as we know, by Hercules in an archery lesson, and Hercules shot a poison arrow into Chiron, misfired, and try as Chiron could, there was nothing that they could find to soothe their own wound. And they spent the rest of their life in agony trying to fill this void, trying to heal. They pleaded to the gods to set them free. They eventually did so. And so they also installed the constellation Sagittarius in memorial of Chiron. Not every astrologer will believe that to be true. I'm going to qualify that statement in the next fortnight's horoscope. I need to remember where I heard that story because it's a beautiful one. I always think about Chiron when I think about Sagittarius, and I will do from now on. It really helps me sort of flesh out my definition of Sagittarius. Right now, Chiron, as I said, is in Aries, in your second house of values, self-worth, of money. And so it might be worth thinking back to a period of time in 2018. There may have been moments where you were like, I don't know if I've got the stuff to survive. I don't know if what I've devoted my life to is going to work. I'm scared of poverty. And that may have continued over. There may be another moment in 2019 where that swelled up too. We won't feel the effects of Chiron continuously like anything, but when there's aspects, when there's invitations to talk about it, it's when we can start thinking about that too. So Mars, the brave one, in your 10th house, your most public self, is being very sweet to Chiron in the second. There might be some lovely lines of conversation around your ability to take care of yourself and those that you care about your resources, about your skill at generating income, generating safety. That's all we really want, and that's the only thing that money can really provide us, is with a sense of safety. We need cash to take care of our business. And this dragon's head is urging us to look at this part of our lives, and it will do for the next 18 months. There's no reprieve here. There's an urgency here. These lessons are going to be proffered and shared. At this new moon, it's lovely and it's supportive. It's very kind. So work with that. Work with that kindness. Maybe in your new moon ritual, you can start to pick apart some of the reasons why you maybe consider yourself to be inept when coming to take care of yourself and those that you care about. Chiron couldn't heal himself, he could heal everyone else. And that's the thing with the astrology of Chiron. You can always see this wound in somebody else, and you can feel for them and give them advice and prop them up, raise them up, lift them up. But if the wound that you have is so easy to heal in others, why is it so difficult to heal in ourselves? And that's because sometimes there's no shame in asking for a little help, a little assistance, a little guidance as well. Maybe there's folks that you can think about that are good with resourcing themselves, or are good at building business, maintaining business. Because you've got nothing to worry about. You've got nothing to hide, Pisces rising. You are naked and free. And the work that you do is for the benefit of everyone. By putting yourself out there, by whatever legacy you're crafting for yourself, it's to try and understand and try and reinforce the connective cosmic tissue that brings us all together, to move water, to move emotions, to feel them, to honor them, to heal them. That's your life's work. It's powerful, powerful, powerful work. And absolutely, in times of crisis, we can start to second guess ourselves too. And it's sort of like there's a feeling of like questioning your intelligence, or questioning your intent, criticizing the ways that your imagination works, and that's your guiding light in this life is your imagination. When finessed and when harnessed, it's a powerful tool, and it's inspiring too. And it sort of feels like that it's been with you since birth, you know? The truth of life, the truth of what your life means, how you spend your day. I'm encouraged to tell you that you've got one life, and the choices that you make, the truth that you follow is yours to follow. Chiron's here to help heal. There's a great potential for healing with Chiron wherever it may lay. I do encourage you to check out where your Chiron placement is on your chart too, because this centeredness, this feeling of wishing to have enough is going to take a lot of work. And so that's something that perhaps your Pisces-ness have been criticized in the past of not being able to focus. The beauty of having a brain, we all have one, we all have an intellect, we all have a neural web inside of us. And it's learning the difference between how different brains operate and learning how your brain operates and going with your skills, going with what you know and what you're good at and what you excel in. Also, how you are different from other folks. You don't have to do what everybody else does to achieve some of this feeling, to achieve that sort of centeredness, that groundedness of finally marveling at the tree that has grown, that you planted decades ago, but now it's providing you shade. You've got to work. That's what the Pentacles are here to teach us. You've got to stick to task. But that doesn't have to mean grind. If the repetition that you're on right now is not working, diversify. Pisces wants to swim that way and that way. The two fish bound by the silver cord. You contain oceans, Pisces. This new moon in Sagittarius is encouraging you to remember that, and to believe in magic, to believe in this part of you, the star, the sacred one, the one that is calmly, gently doing their work, toing and froing. Who knows how many naps or rests the star has taken. Every single one is taken with relish. So find your own way of operating, find your own systems, find your own routine, and diversify it if things get a bit trod in. Change it up a little bit and work with these unconscious woundings about your value, how you value yourself, your sense of self-worth, because we don't want that to impede on your legacy. You're worth it, babe. If you're still here with me, Pisces rising, can you put a horse emoji in the comments, please? I would very much appreciate that. You can subscribe to my channel monetarily at buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby. You can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month. You can also throw some money in the tip jar there. You can get your birth chart read by me. They look like this over at umaruby.com. I'd be very thrilled to draw you one up and to read it for you. If you'd like to give the gift of Uma during this holiday season, if you'd like to gift somebody a reading with me, send me an email at urok@umaruby.com, and I can arrange to get you a voucher to give to them during this season. Much love to you, Pisces rising. Now remember that Mercury is going to station retrograde on the day of this new moon. So as far as intel and information and clarification, it's probably a really good time to allow some of that to steep as well. Maybe give yourself the rest of this year to not feel the urgency of having to apply or having to send or having to produce or get it out there. Let this idea steep like a tea bag. And then you can move through, you can move forward. Mercury is a trickster. And they can really get in the way of clarity sometimes. Big kiss. Happy holidays. I'll speak to you in 2 weeks for the Cancer full moon, okay? Take care.